I'm Rusty Wise from the Wise News Network studios, and we have a special guest today, and it's the upcoming mayor, Wade Stroupe. Now, I say that because you're running unopposed, and appreciate you coming into the studio.
I'm delighted to be here, Rusty. Thank you. And yes, hopeful that I'll be the upcoming mayor. But again, anything I guess can happen on election day. So we'll wait and see. So I don't want to assume anything too early. But it's my honor to be here with you. I really appreciate the invitation and look forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, appreciate you coming in, and hopefully by the end of it, people will know Wade Stroupe a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so. And certainly want people to know what Wade Stroupe's all about and what my campaign and hopefully future candidacy will be as mayor.
Now, tell us about your early life. I know you've born and raised here.
Born and raised in Cherryville, never left. Kind of much like you. I tell people I didn't fall far from the tree. I grew up over on South Dixie Street here in Cherryville, and uh, later moved to a house on South Elm, and I'm still on South Elm today. So I certainly, which is about a block away from where I grew up. So I didn't fall far from the tree, but I grew up here. We graduated together, Cherryville High School, 1982. Very proud of that, and very proud of our years in education coming up in Cherryville, and proud of the Iron Men, and certainly proud of class of 1982. After that, I went on and studied for 4 years at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Got a BA in business and economics from there, and then came back to Cherryville. I'm kind of proud of that fact because in those days and still today, there's so many kids and younger kids, for good reason, go other places to live and work and grow themselves. But I'm very proud that I moved back to Cherryville and have been here ever since.
Now, work-wise, you still work,
Yeah,
retired? Or?
I'm right now. I'm kind of I'm toying with whether to call it semi-retirement or self-employment, but it's a little bit of both. When I came back to Cherryville, I went to work, and my primary working career since 1986 till about a year and a half ago was in the transportation industry. I was a 11, 12-year employee of Carolina Freight Carriers. And was with them until they closed the doors and Arkansas Best bought out the company. And I worked there as the director of environmental compliance, dealing with hazardous materials, environmental issues across the whole spectrum of the Carolina Freight Corporation, dealing with EPA regulations, handling regulations, dealing with underground storage tanks, handling of hazardous materials that were on transport on the trucks and that sort of thing. And then after Carolina Freight closed, me and a good friend started a small local moving and storage company called Panther Van Lines. So for 4 or 5 years, I was the kind of the managing partner, the owner, the actual person out driving the trucks, loading the trucks, doing everything in that role. But in after that stint and career or short-term career, I went to work for Atlas Van Lines in Charlotte. And I started out in sales with them. And then for the last 15, 16 years of my career, I was the general manager of the Atlas Van Lines agency in Charlotte. So still doing transportation, moving, storage, logistics, warehousing, that sort of thing there. So about a year and a half ago, I transitioned into what I call, a kind of a self-employment semi-retirement career. I'm still doing some contract sales with Atlas Van Lines and a couple other small moving companies. But primarily, I transitioned into my real estate career. I've had my real estate license for 20 years, but I just activated it about a year and a half ago. And I'm a North Carolina licensed broker, and my shingle, so to speak, is with Vicky Sperling Realty here in Cherryville.
So you've worked for other people and also worked for yourself. So you've got kind of a range there of having to write the checks and also receiving the checks.
Absolutely, and that's one thing back to my when I was kind of an entrepreneur and starting the small moving and storage company, Panther Van Lines. I tell people all the time, I think I was doing a great job of earning my employees a check, but I wasn't doing a real good job of earning myself a check. So, but that was an incredible learning experience, and really helped me going on to Atlas Van Lines, kind of knowing that business, the moving and storage business, from the ground up, rather than just entering into a larger company without having that boots on the ground experience.
Now the election's coming up November 4th, and there's early voting starting October 16th at the Board of Elections there in Gastonia. And you're unopposed. You did have David Whitesides that had registered, and then he pulled out just a couple days later. So you really don't have an opponent, so to speak,
Right.
unless people write in write-ins,
Sure.
which doesn't generally go
I'm really
well.
worried about Mickey Mouse. I hear
Yeah, yeah,
Mickey gets a lot of votes on these
yeah.
write-in
Mickey
elections.
Mouse, you
So
might
yeah,
have a contender there.
right.
But why is Wade running? I know you've been a past mayor of like 99 to 2003, I think it
That's
was.
correct. Yeah.
And so you've had some experience there with, but being mayor. So why is Wade Stroupe running for mayor again?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I was mayor for 2 terms from 99 to 2003. And I'm really proud of that service. I mean, there were a lot of difficult issues that we tackled as a city. And we, as a council and mayor, we met head on, and I'm really proud of those things. And honestly, I did run for a 3rd term and was beaten in that 3rd term. So I didn't win reelection. So, and I was okay with that. It's never been about me and what I want to do or my candidacy for mayor or thinking that I'm the only one that can do something for the city. But it still was kind of an empty taste in my mouth that I still thought at some point I would want more. I was very thankful that, and at the time, Bob Ostell was the mayor that beat me in the election, and he went on to serve a number of terms. And it was never about me versus Bob. It's about who could do the best job for the city and who's willing to do that job for the city. So I left that, but I was in the middle of my still kind of working career. I mean, that was 25 years ago. So I was still very much, involved 50, 60 hour personal work week. And then being mayor, kind of took its toll on top of my regular schedule. So it wasn't the time really until about a year, 2 years ago that I started thinking when I did my kind of transition into semi-retirement that now's kind of the time that I'd like to give back and get involved. And again, I'm real proud of my service before, and I'm looking forward to continuing some of those things and certainly bringing I think my leadership and work ethic to the table as
Well,
mayor.
back then, that's right after Carolina Freight had went away,
It
and that
was.
was some really dark times for Cherryville.
It was incredibly dark times. I mean, people talk about Carolina Freight, and that was devastating to our economy. But that came even on the heels of the textile industry going south, in the 80s and 90s, and where Cherryville was basically built on the textile mills and economy and industry, and people still talk about their local neighborhood mills that they grew up in and the community spirit around all of those. When that goes away, we still had Carolina Freight to sustain our local economy, but then when that disappeared, Cherryville was in a very bleak and dark situation. So, you like to think as a public servant or as a mayor or as council person, you can do something, but just it's really impossible to overcome those sorts of devastating losses to a town our size.
So you're running. Is there certain areas now? You've got a platform, of course, and you've got bullet points there, and I'll run over them. So there, when somebody runs for office, there's usually some reasons that they want to run, and not that you have an agenda, so to speak, against anyone, but generally you want to see some things maybe changed or improved or something. So the first bullet point I see is customer service.
Yeah, and if I could, Rusty, I know you're looking at a document that I put out, and I actually developed that back before the Cherry Blossom Festival, because just before that, I kind of announced publicly, if not actually being able to file. The filing period wasn't until July, but just before the Cherry Blossom Festival, I thought that would be a good time for me to announce that I would be running for mayor this fall. So I developed that document, and it does have a lot of bullet points on there. And those are still in play. Those are still things that I want to do and want to see. But I've kind of over time talking to people, talking to citizens, what's really important. There's really 3 areas. One is customer service. The other would be long term, even immediate and long term strategic planning for the city across all departments and areas. And then the third thing that's probably most important, and these aren't really in any particular order, but the third thing is enhancing, improving, doing what we can as a city to improve our quality of life here in Cherryville. I think we've got a really good quality of life here. It's a great place to live, but what can we do to make it even better? So, but back to your point about customer service, that is a very integral part of what I would like to see the city involved with. And when I say customer service, it obviously means the city serving its customers, and primarily the customers are the citizens of Cherryville. They're the ones that are given the policies and procedures of the city to follow. They're the ones that pay the bills from the city. So just treating those customers with fairness, with dignity, with empathy, understanding what position they're in. I think we can do a better job of that. And across all of my platform, I'm not really specifically saying that the city is doing anything wrong. Certainly, there's everybody can improve. I can improve on things that I do. Everybody in every situation can improve, and that's what I'm talking about. I'm not pointing my fingers at anybody in elected office or anybody in administration or any of the, especially employees on the streets doing the jobs. I just think we can have better customer service, better attention to what we're doing as a city for our citizens and for our customers. And how can we do it better? How can we improve on that? And even expanding on that a little bit, customers to me means the citizens of Cherryville, but also it also means other people that may not be citizens, may not be a voting citizen, but they receive services or they're under policies and guidelines, procedures that are established by the city. And by that, I mean ETJ, folks that live in the ETJ or extraterritorial jurisdiction, businesses and people that live in those areas, they still abide by city policy, but they don't have a vote. They still deserve good customer service. And I think the city employees themselves deserve to be treated fairly and with good service to them. They need to be given the tools, the training, everything necessary to make their jobs more efficient, make them be more efficient in their jobs. But also, I think that's essential before the employees can then carry on good customer service to our citizens and to our actual customers.
Yeah, you bringing that up. I know some people have mentioned to me, like they own a business in Cherryville, but they really feel like they have no voice in Cherryville
Right. Yeah,
because they don't
I
live
totally
here.
agree with
Yeah,
that. Yeah, and there's people that own businesses or property and that sort of thing, but live elsewhere, but they're still under the city's policies, procedures, pricing schedules, that sort of thing too. So, regardless of that, I just think treat people with respect and fairness, and give a consistent comments and consistent uh, philosophy of the Cherryville. Make people feel respected, and I think that would go a long way into building trust that the city is there to serve the customers, the citizens, but also just I think it would go a long way in building the brand of Cherryville. If people are talking positively about Cherryville and the customer service and the way we treat our citizens, then to me, that's going to come back many-fold with talk around town or people saying, "Hey, that'd be a great place to live," right? So just going the extra mile. It's not that we're necessarily doing anything wrong, but certainly we can do things better. I think everybody would
yeah.
agree with that. And then maybe go the extra mile to build our brand, to build our reputation around our neighboring cities and towns.
Well, I've got a few questions, and don't really want to get in too much into the weeds, but I'm on the street. I've lived here all my life, so I hear a lot.
Right.
People tell us everything. Some of it we report on, and most of it we digest and see if it's reportable.
Right.
But like the roads, you know, the roads and the infrastructure for the roads and the potholes. It's not only just Cherryville, but it's in other cities too. But our roads and the potholes and just fixing the roads, because that's something that people are dodging every day. So
Mhm.
it's in the forefront of their mind,
Right.
you know.
Um, I was just looking at some notes I'd made earlier, and I listed like the top 5 things that people have told me, because I've talked to a lot of people over the last 6, 8 months, and even like you, a lifelong resident, you hear things all the time, whether you're running for office or not. But roads, streets, sidewalks, that's the number one thing I hear from everyone today. Then it flows down to electric bills, electric rates, um, and also to beautification issues of cleaning up our city. And then also, I hear recycling as something that people want more of. Um, so those are the types of things I'm hearing, but by far, roads, streets are the number one issue, and that kind of goes back to my main three platform items. Um, we can't redo every road overnight. We can't, and I know the city systematically, each year paves a certain amount, certain number, whatever, and that's fantastic. I think we can do more. And I'm not sure exactly how the policy works now with the city. I know when mayor 25, 26 years ago, there was a master list of all roads and all issues across the city, and given council input to make it fair to all the different wards, that just not one ward was getting all the new streets, or kind of spread it out all over the city. But with staff recommendations on prioritizing those needs and then tackling them one at a time and doing as much as you can. So you can't do everything overnight. You certainly can't do everything in one year, but that kind of goes back to my long range, immediate, but also long range strategic planning for roads, for water, sewer, for electric, for beautification of the city. Is Again, I'm not. A lot of times things happen in a reactionary mode. You have to be reactive. Something happens, you got to address it, and you got to take care of the situation. But I would much rather see us be primarily a proactive city, to have a plan so that we know, every citizen knows that, well, maybe not this year, but 2 years from now, my street's going to get repaved, or some
So
system
that
that,
goes into the long-term planning,
yeah,
at
100%.
least my street's getting it in 5 years from
Yeah,
now or
5 year,
something,
10 year, even 20 year
yeah,
planning. And I think that, I mean, to me, that makes life easy for the city, is that you have that to fall back on, that there's been studies, there's been research, there's been dialogue, there's been discussions across the board. And this is our plan for the next 10 years to address all the city's street problems, the water and sewer problems, the electric issues, if there are any, have you.
yeah.
So and it goes across all services. I mean, it's not something that I'm saying we tackle roads and nothing else, but we need to look at every department, every service that the city offers, and then put together a capital strategic plan for the next 10 to 20 years.
I know a lot of the potholes that have been created, and I say created is by the cutting up of the asphalt.
That's
And I
correct.
know contractors have come in and cut up the roads,
Mhm.
but there has not been a contractual agreement between the contractors coming in that you have to fix the road a certain way. And that is probably something that needs to be looked into.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a lot of it's just age and deterioration over time, and that's something that's on the city. But if a contractor, a service industry, a cable network cuts the roads, and
Yeah.
I've heard that and seen that a lot just in the recent 6 months or past year, when they come back and patch those roads, then that asphalt's going to settle, and you're going to have a dip, a problem, a pothole, whatever it may create. So yeah, absolutely. And enforcement of that, going back on that. I mean, you may have something in contract, but unless the city holds that contractor liable and responsible to fix it back to as good or better than it was, then and I'm not saying that's not being done, but it's certainly
Yes, to my understanding, there is no contractual agreement on how
okay.
to fix our roads
Yeah,
back.
well,
So
that's
it's
that's
like a verbal, "Oh, yeah, we'll patch it," but there's nothing, it should be patched like it should be per state requirements.
Yeah, 100%. And
And they're cold patching and it
yeah, you're
comes
exactly
out, but
right. If
yeah.
if there's not a written agreement, I mean, we know
Yeah,
in
the
today's
honor
society,
system just doesn't work, you know,
yeah,
you know.
especially in those bigger issues like that,
Yeah,
right? For sure. So yeah, that would be certainly that'd be part of that. Developing the policies and procedures for the long term plan, right? Is
yeah.
putting those things in place.
And then sidewalks, we get hit up about sidewalks, and some of our sidewalks are just not ADA compliant. I mean,
Oh, there's not, and then
they're
and even on my street in town, there's I've noticed because I walk around town, at least in the main part of town, quite a bit, and there's raised portions of sidewalks, and it's due to trees and roots and that sort of thing. So, and those are all over town. I hear it from everybody, every part of town. So, if you're going to have some sidewalks, you need to maintain sidewalks. And again, you can't fix every problem today, but a plan to fix every problem in the near or distant future has to be in
Well, I don't
place.
know if you saw the pedestrian plan that was a number of years ago. It's there, and it's a very intensive
Was
plan,
that
but
2009
I think
maybe?
so, but
Yeah.
really nothing was acted on
Well,
it, and
that is incredibly frustrating because I'm not sure if maybe the city got that through a grant or through some type of
I know
I
there's a
don't know
lot of
what we
money
paid for
spent
it.
on it. I
Somebody
know.
spent a lot of money on
Yeah.
it. It's our tax dollars somewhere. If it's not directly out of our city tax dollars, it came out of our state or federal
Yeah.
tax dollars. But yeah, I'm very familiar with that plan, and I've had that brought up to me by a couple citizens about you have this wonderful plan, study of what we need to be doing, and for nothing, literally nothing to be done about that is frustrating to say
Well,
the least.
Cherryville itself is a small town. It's walkable on Main Street. It's walkable in the downtown area, but when you get from Food Line to Walmart on the main highway here, I mean, we're dodging people with buggies on Highway 150 because they have no sidewalks.
Mhm, mhm.
And now with the new apartments coming in on Academy, there's no sidewalks
Right,
there. So
right.
I see people trying to walk, but they just have no avenue to walk.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, especially with the new apartment complex and those areas that don't have sidewalks. So it is kind of frustrating that there were plans maybe laid out and stated 15 years ago or so, that haven't really been enacted or enforced or implemented since then. And as I understand it, that was also to be kind of a bigger part of a bigger regional type network. I know that you've got the thread trail that other cities, Shelby, Gastonia, certainly Lincoln are developing. They have these walking networks of abandoned rail spurs or whatever it may be. But to have those sorts of things that could also bring people into the city. I know I personally go to Shelby, Lincoln, and Gastonia, Crowder's Mountain to walk trails and things. So it'd be nice to have something that might tie into a bigger, broader network here, but to bring people in. But certainly the core of that is our own streets and sidewalks and walkability within the city of Cherryville is
Yeah, our
addressing
major
that. So,
food hubs are not walkable.
right,
Walmart and Food Line.
right,
Our major food hubs, people are walking, in the road
hmm,
and then in the median and in the grass. So
right, right,
it's something that, probably needs to be looked at.
sure,
Right now, the city with the budget is sitting on a $3.8 million surplus. And I know that's a reserve, and that's probably one of the highest they've had in years. Um, what do you think about the surplus? Do you think that needs to be just stay there, or we need to spend it, or that's a lot. That's a lot of money in
It is a lot
surplus.
by state standards, and I know when I was mayor before, we had a very healthy reserve, and then soon after, as we know, probably that reserve got down incredibly low, and there were some dire times in that. But through some you know good fiscal accounting, good measures, it was built back up. So I'm not on the side of sitting there and hoarding or holding on to those numbers as much as possible. Um, um, but certainly maintaining a healthy balance, but then using the dollars that are there for the things we've talked about and prioritize the things we've talked about and chip away at that a little bit more. So, maybe we could put a little bit more into street maintenance, maybe put a little bit more into water and sewer maintenance, and that sort of thing along the way without just sitting there with a reserve that's not being used.
Shifting gears a little bit about transparency. We video the meetings. The city itself was videoing the meetings, and now they've gotten away from that. And we don't mind video the meetings, but we can't always guarantee we'll be there every meeting. What's your thoughts on videoing or recording the meetings?
Um, well, I personally was very upset when the city chose not to video and broadcast their own meetings. Thank you, Rusty. Thank you, Wise News Network, for doing that, because if not for you, it would not be out there. And I know the proponents of that decision to eliminate that it was a cost savings measure. I've been told that, because there is a cost to that.
That was like $300 a month.
Well,
I mean,
again,
it was peanuts.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. But
I mean, we're sitting on three and
but
a half
I just
million.
think if and no offense to you, and no disrespect to you, because I think you do a good job of showing those meetings and broadcasting those meetings. But at any point in time, as a private entity, you could spend something a different way, or not show something because your company chose not to show it, or for other reasons, you may tomorrow, next week, next month say it's not feasible for
Well, it's
Wise News
not. I mean,
Network.
it
So
cost us a lot of money
I'm
to
sure it
do
does.
it,
I'm sure it does.
and
So
I'm, we can't always guarantee we'll be there. I
right,
mean, if there's
right,
another major event story, I mean, we may not be able to be
right.
there, and we get a lot of compliments that we do it.
Mhm,
We just record it,
mhm.
and then put it out there. We don't edit it or anything.
Right.
So we're just doing it as a service to the community. But I feel like, I think I'm all about transparency. I'm in the news business. I
Mhm.
mean, we're a member of the Press Association, so we like transparency.
Sure.
I think everything needs to be recorded.
Right.
Um, I think all the documents need to be online,
Right.
where you
Right.
don't have to ask for it.
Right.
That's just, I'm a proponent for that.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And you do a great job. But again, if you make a decision that you, or for whatever reason, you couldn't be at the next council
Yeah,
meeting,
yeah.
then what happens? Then how are the citizens going to see that? And all of this really came about during COVID, I guess, right? People weren't going to meetings. People weren't getting together, gathering in place at physical meetings, but they were able to see it on TV. So I think coming out of that, some people at least relied on that. And were wanting to see it. And I know in my church through COVID, and many other churches through COVID, they broadcast their worship services online via Facebook or YouTube. In our church, it's just kind of a static camera, very simply operated. That you said 300 a month, but it's once you pay for that infrastructure, if you have that in place, it's very simply operated and wouldn't cost much, if anything, each month to do that, to broadcast it on Facebook or YouTube. So I would be very much in favor of the city going back to broadcasting in some manner all meetings, even work sessions. I'm a big proponent of that, not just the regular city council meetings, because I'm 100% behind transparency as well. I think, discussions, a lot of times I'll go to a meeting, and by nature, sometimes this kind of has to happen, but you'll go to a meeting and there'll be a topic. The city council may bring up a motion, they'll pass it, but really the average citizen sitting in the chairs or even watching on TV, what was behind that? What was the rationale? What came to that decision by the council? So I think citizens should be privy to that conversation as well. What's behind it? How did it come forward? And what is the total council's collective opinions about that, rather than just bringing up a motion and passing it or turning it down?
Well, I think
So,
the materials need to be put up on a screen or something for the citizens to see, because
absolutely.
a lot of times they're talking about stuff and the public's in the dark.
Yeah, I
And,
think
if you watch other cities and counties, they'll post or put on the screen what they're talking about,
right.
and a couple video screens.
Well, I think so too. And yeah, and putting up all the agenda material, because I'm sure you get the full agenda package before each meeting. I've been getting that for over a year, and any citizen can be put on what they
Mhm.
call the sunshine list to receive that. But when you go to a meeting, if you're just walking in blindly as a citizen or someone interested, you see the agenda and you see the one small bullet point for that agenda item, but you're not seeing the 10 pages of documentation that the council's looking at, or that like you or I may get beforehand, right? So that would clear up a lot of questions, I think, because a lot of
Well,
things just kind of occur and people don't know what's behind it, or don't know all the rationale or the statistics or the documentation behind that decision that they just made.
I know just talking to some lawyers in Raleigh, and a lot of policies are set, but and through some officials, they were saying that the League of Municipalities is not big on recording meetings, especially video. And I don't know why that is, but I think from a lawyer standpoint, for the city lawyer standpoint, it opens the city up for mistakes. Because sometimes, if something's not exactly motioned right or done right, then video's video. You can't change it. So I think behind the scenes, there's sort of I wouldn't say a push, but they don't recommend that you video the meetings
Well, that
from
certainly
a legality
yeah,
standpoint.
that certainly makes sense. And when you said that about the League of Municipalities, that's a bunch of attorneys sitting around saying, "Wait a minute, we're fighting too many lawsuits, or seeing too many lawsuits, or
Mhm.
seeing too many actions," and that certainly is a concern. I mean, in today's litigious society, anything opens you up to potential lawsuits. But if you're conducting your meetings properly, if you're open in the conduction of those meetings across the board, if you're
Mhm.
transparent in the business of the city, then I would err on the side of informing our citizens of what's going on rather than trying to prevent some future legal action of what's going on. And I would rather see more information disseminated to the public than not. And going back to your point about, just posting, having the video screens in the meetings where you see pictures, you see plats when they're talking about a subdivision that's being approved or not approved or whatever, for the citizens at the meeting or even watching on video to see that, it answers so many more questions than are created by not being able to see
Yeah,
that.
we
So
try to put B-roll up of what is talked about, but then again, it's more work for us.
right.
It's just
Yeah,
we're
for
doing
sure.
it as a public service,
Yeah,
and
but back to your original, I was vocal to a few of the council members that I was very disappointed when the city chose not to broadcast their own meetings because I'm very much in favor of that.
that's nice to hear. Back to making decisions and the council making decisions. We had to FOIA them on some issues, and at one time they were all texting each other, which constitutes a public meeting. And then I don't know, they may be emailing now. I know they get a weekly email blast. I think I don't know if you're on that or not,
I'm not at this point.
uh, but as a news agency, we can tell when they make decisions that they've already made their decision. They've already talked about it.
Mhm.
And we're talking multi-million-dollar decisions that they spend 5 minutes on. And yeah, I know there was discussion about it, had to be, but was it one on one? Was it, 2 on 1? I mean, anytime you have a quorum, uh, uh, by the council, then it has to be a public meeting.
Right.
So that we forwarded them, and then I think they've stopped the texting, but I don't know about the other issues. You know what I'm saying? So I think e- sometimes they just don't speak enough in the meetings to. They've already talked about it, I guess.
Yeah, and I would agree with that on both sides. I mean, it is a kind of a fine edge that you're walking as an elected official because to boil down if it's a critical, important, heavy weighted decision for the city.
Yeah, I'm talking
uh,
about more in the work session than the meeting.
yeah,
Yeah, the
even
work
even the work
session
session,
is where
even the
you
work
should talk it
session,
out.
but yeah, for sure. And I'm not sure, and I believe I'm correct in the fact that over the past few years, maybe going back even more years, there have been actual decisions maybe made at work sessions. I don't attend work sessions as much as I would like to. I've been at most, if not all, of the regular council meetings in the past few years. But you hear about things that were taken care of in the work session, maybe. But I know, and I believe, and I'm not taking credit for it by any means, but our council back in around 2000 kind of started the work session process, and that was purely to deliberate and talk about issues, but not to take action. So I don't know if we ever, if any time took any action at a work session, purely to look at facts, figures, information about decisions that would be made later in a regular council meeting. Because thinking that you could go into any regular council meeting and deliberate some topics that have wealth of information would be kind of, that wouldn't be doing good service to anybody to come
Yeah,
in
it
there
just
and
drag
then
out the
try.
meetings,
Right.
but in
But
the
to
work
actually take
sessions,
the
there's not a
action.
whole lot of discussion, and things are voted on quickly,
Well, and
you
that's
know?
what I'm not sure about. So, I don't know. And to think that there's not mayor to council, council to council, one-on-one conversations outside any meetings, public meeting. I mean, we know that happens.
Yeah, and
Whether
that's
it's happening
yeah.
in a proper legal manner, if there's if they're getting together all council members in any town or city at having coffee in a back room somewhere, off the record, then that obviously
Well,
is
I
a
think
problem.
a
So
quorum constitutes, now with the technology, the texting,
right,
the emailing,
right, right.
if you've got a group email and one person responds back to all,
Mhm.
you just created a meeting.
Right, right. But to think it couldn't go one to one to one to
Oh,
one,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's going to
that's
happen.
gonna
And that
happen.
has to happen. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
honestly, I mean, because there's so much that goes on, so much happening, it has to go on. But any um, topic or discussion point that affects the city of Cherryville and affects the citizens of Cherryville, whether through an obvious, it affects something in my neighborhood in my backyard, or it's a tax dollar situation that's being spent. I think fully needs to be vetted, discussed in public in an open forum, and then council makes its decisions. Right. So I would love to see that, and kind of hand in hand with that, another thing that I'm really, really strong on, and I don't know how you fix this, is trying to get citizens involved in coming to meetings and being involved in decisions. You and I grew up here. Certainly, you're very active in what goes on in this town. I have been in the past, and certainly will continue. But and I know far too many people that are kind of, unless it's in my backyard or unless it's on my city utility bill, um, they really don't know what's going on. They really don't
Well,
care what's going on, and that's fine. That's okay because they entrust people to take care of that. But having a voice in your town, having a voice of what goes on in your city and what the future of our city holds, I think is critical. And I have talked to a lot of people over the past few months that are, they're expressing a little more interest, and hopefully that'll come in time. But back to your public meeting, open meetings, discussion points, getting input from the city citizens, asking what they want, what's their opinion on things. I think that's critical to a trust factor that people say, okay, if I come and speak or if I get involved, then yeah, I can trust that things are happening properly.
I think some people got discouraged because they actually got up and spoke at some meetings, and they felt like there was just a waste of time
Right,
because the decision had already been made on some
right,
of these big
right.
decisions, and, you were on the or still on the zoning board, I guess,
Yes, sir.
and, you guys have made some decisions of the cluster neighborhoods,
Mhm. Right.
and, if you wanna speak on that, it's my understanding that y'all, voted against some of the neighborhoods and then they really didn't take your advice. Is
Um,
that how it was, or is it a little
well,
different?
I've only been on the planning and zoning board for about 2 years, and some of the larger developments that are coming and are in process here in Cherryville were before my time on the planning and zoning board, and that's when some of these cluster developments were approved by perhaps then the past zoning boards and the city council. Um, and I'm very much a proponent against cluster development because, in my opinion, it's kind of a way around rezoning a piece of property. If you have a piece of property that is zoned as R40 or R20, then you know what you can do on that piece of property, but going for a cluster development, it basically it puts some more restrictions on what you can do, but it basically cuts the lot size in half or even by 75% down. and in my opinion, that's not necessary. That kind of flies in the face of what our land use plan is. If a certain area of town was designated as R40 or R20 or whatever it may be, then I think that's what it should be. It should, because there are places, there are areas for more dense, apartments, townhomes, condos, smaller size lots. And I go back to the project on Rickway Road. That project was approved for a development when I was mayor back in around 2000. Um, and it could have been developed and built as approved then. So it sat there, it stagnated, nothing happened, and then fast forward to a
But
couple of years.
it was approved for larger lots,
Well, yeah, it was approved. It was approved. I don't know
the
the
R50 or
designation,
R40 or something.
but
I
it
don't
was
know.
approved for somewhere around upper 300 to 400 lots on that entire parcel of land. It was approved there. And 2 or 3 years ago, when the project was resurrected, maybe changed ownership and the developer took over that, they could have come in and built 400 homes or whatever it was approved. They didn't have to do it, but they chose to go a step further and get the clustered zoning and condense the lot sizes. And now they're approved for 600 homes, and I'm talking in round numbers. I don't know the
Mhm.
actuality, but I was totally against that because, having, especially in that area, a little bit more of a rural setting, a little bit more bigger, larger lots would be, would be fine, and certainly 400 lots would be fine versus now what they can do is 600 lots. So, because it's hard to imagine that we'll ever build out 600 homes on Rickway Road, in my opinion. So,
Well, and House Strapp's property, it was like 550 there.
mhm.
I think the economics does not work. Right now, housing has slowed down.
Right,
So
right.
I think they got 2025 built. They were supposed to have 120 built by the end of this year. So housing has slowed down.
Mhm.
So I think the economics might be a play there because when you increase the lot size, the developer can't make as much and it's not economically as feasible. Not that they
Right,
can't make it, but they'll
right.
make more money by smaller lots.
Well, that's one thing, and that's actually an argument I've heard over the past couple of years from the city is that, well, the developers can't make money. Um, that to me is ludicrous for a city to hold for a city to hold its opinion based on what the developer can and can't do. Because you know as well as I do, depending on what home is built and who the audience is for that home, you can make money. I mean,
Yeah.
you're in real estate. I'm in real estate. You build a home, it will sell to the appropriate audience, an appropriate person in the right market. So saying that a developer can't make money is to me is ludicrous because it
Well,
just
why do you
depends.
think?
But they can't make as much money on cheaper homes. That's what it boils down to. But anyway, and that's fine. I totally understand the developer has to do what they have to do. But if the city is in a planning and zoning and controlled growth situation, then the city needs to establish its rules based on our land use plan, based on the demographics, based on the city of Cherryville, and not based on what the developers may or may not can do.
I don't quite understand why we need to literally double the population of Cherryville by a few neighborhoods. That would be basically what you're doing. And do we need it for revenue or do we need it for people? I don't quite understand the thinking there.
Well, I'm sure there's more of a customer base from residential, but the city's not making money on the water, sewer, electric. When you talk about the cost to put in infrastructure to there, that's not the big money makers. I mean, obviously, if it were commercial development, business development, business parks being put in and those being occupied, then those could be some significant numbers. But the one thing I go back to too is increasing lot sizes, increasing, uh, more traffic on Rickway Road. What's the road, streets, DOT impact of that? Schools, what's the effect on our schools? What's the effect? What is the overall effect to the quality of life in
Well, be
Cherryville?
careful what you wish for. I mean, I see more homeless people walking around Cherryville than I've ever had. You've lived here all your life, and
Right.
and I see people with backpacks walking around and just uh, up until the past say 10 years, used to never see that.
Right.
At least I didn't.
Right. Right.
And we have a homeless situation in Cherryville,
Yeah.
from my understanding.
But, and up as a result of these two larger developments, the House Stroupe property and the Rick Wade Road project, I've talked to a lot of teachers over the past couple of years, and when those were approved, and for the city to just when asked about what's the impact on our school system, or and for them to say either, well, that's a Gaston County problem, or well, we notified Gaston County that a potential of 600 more homes are coming in. That does nothing. That does nothing. And the teachers and the people that are in our schools here in Cherryville will tell you that the real impact is here in Cherryville. So, so not to do that, not to study those things, and not to do a DOT traffic study on what's the impact of these things in our streets in our town. So I just think there's a lot of work that needs to be done before you just blank blanketly say, okay, yeah, 600 homes in Cherryville would be great.
Well,
Let's
I've
do
heard
it.
the reason, well, we'll get a new high school because we've got more people and, combined with Bessemer City. Okay, that sounds good, but what are you going to do about the elementary school and the
Right.
middle school?
Right.
People, they forget about this is a progression from elementary all the way through high school.
Right.
So it's not just the high school that will need to be rebuilt, it's all the schools. And so, like you say, long strategic planning needs to be done.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know. Well, I don't know if anybody, well, I think a lot of people would agree with me, but if we're going to wait on Gaston County schools and Gaston County to come here and study our situation and get us on an equal footing with other high schools and other school systems in our neighboring Gaston County towns, then we're wasting our breath,
Yeah.
because that's not going to happen. And that's another thing that I talk about in my quality of life platform is, one thing that I'm most proud of is that when I was mayor before, I helped, and basically I'm not in this for personal gain or patting myself on the back, but I established the Cherryville Education Task Force. And nothing against, at the time, John Aker, that was our school board chairman, but our school board representative from Cherryville, or any of our school board representatives since then and now. But Cherryville as a city needs to be advocating for education, our schools within the city limits of our city, because that's huge when you talk about, first of all, an employment base. I mean, that's the school system in Cherryville is one of the biggest employers with all the teachers that work here. But also, it's from an identity standpoint. Cherryville Ironman, Cherryville High School, that's a huge identity standpoint for us. And for us not to advocate and work toward better, more equitable solutions and systems for our schools as they have in Cramerton or Belmont or Mount Holly or wherever, then I think we're missing the boat. I think we're doing a disservice to our citizens if we're not advocating for our schools here. So,
Shifting gears to ordinances, looking at the website, and you've got your name on it. The last time the ordinances were updated was October 6, 2003.
that's correct.
And the original ordinances were 1998.
Right.
And they haven't been updated.
That's,
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, don't you think maybe they should be updated?
I think that's, yeah, 100%. And I think it's absolutely ludicrous that they haven't been updated in 25 years, 23 years, whatever it may be. And not because we did it before, but when we did it before, that's again goes to the long range planning. I mean, ordinance have to be looked at, if not every 5 years, every 10 years, certainly. It has to be on a plan that every 10 years we're going to develop a 10-year plan for our ordinances. And then 10 years from now, we're going to develop another 10-year plan going forward. So, and that's the one, that thing that irritates me more as anything in running for mayor. And mainly because on the planning and zoning board over the last 2 years, there have been 2 occasions that the planning and zoning board have as a whole unanimously recommended to the city to review, revise, update our code of ordinances, mainly for the planning and zoning portion of that. And it hasn't been done, hasn't even been looked at. So, so that's probably at my first meeting, again, if elected at my first meeting, that's going to be on the agenda. Now, council, obviously, as mayor, I don't have a vote in these things, But and council can do what they wish, but it's not going to be without discussion from the mayor.
It seems like there's still a lot of nepotism in Cherryville, a lot of buddy buddy, a lot of I scratch your back, scratch my back. Um, I know Cherryville's a small community, and I know we try to use local contractors as much as we can, but just the bid process, the city ordinances, what is the procurement policies? That's always been a muddy area, or bids being gotten on projects. And, I hear on the street that, this was just given to his buddy and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on that?
Um, well, honestly, I don't know any specifics in that regard. I don't know that I've even really heard that in terms of specifics that this person did something because of whatever.
But the
But
procurement process, I
we
don't
know
know
that
what it
no,
is,
certainly has a process and as a procedure or a policy of the city that should be frowned upon, and you should go to great lengths to to try to get rid of any uh, issues that may lead to questions about those, the bid process or procurement or whatever. And it needs to be fair, consistent, above board across the table for sure. So I would be totally for that. I just can't speak to the fact that I've heard or not heard
Yeah, yeah.
anything about that specifically. Right. So,
There's just been very little public bid being publicized, just very
right.
little.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit on the website, but very little.
Yeah. And I mean, I know from my past experience, but I assume it is still the same today that there are very stringent public state guidelines for those type things. Certainly up to a certain limit may not have to be bid. Over a certain limit certainly has to be bid. But
At one time,
uh,
I think it might have been around the time you were on mayor or something. I think they lowered it like $500. Anything over
mm,
500, you're supposed to get three bids.
mhm.
I don't know if it's still like that or not. I don't think it's anywhere in the ordinances
Yeah,
or the
and I'm
procurement
sorry I
process.
can't
Yeah,
speak to even what it was maybe when I was mayor, but certainly not today in terms of actual numbers or dollar amounts or whatever.
and focus on downtown. Our downtown looks beautiful.
Mhm.
But it seems like there's been a tremendous focus on downtown, and some of the other businesses away from downtown feel neglected.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a big part of my quality of life platform, and I've been telling people, kind of summing it up. uh, I agree. What they've done on Main Street with the city's investment certainly, but Bob Barker gave a great deal of money to kickstart that initiative and get things going. Certainly, a lot of the private development and resurgence of buildings and renovations of buildings has gone a great way and is attracting more new businesses. It's wonderful. But I kind of sum it up. Well, okay, we've done Main Street, but now let's take Main Street to every street. What are we doing for? What are we doing for Wise Electric? What are we doing for Food Line? What are we doing for Ferguson Hardware? Just to name a few, but to name every other outlying business or kind of community hub, if you will, things going on. What are we doing to bring that quality, good, small town, beautiful feel to the rest of our city and even to neighborhoods?
or like having sidewalks so you could walk to downtown.
Right, right. But yeah, 100%. And I'm all about a systematic beautification effort for the entire city. And I know you get into certain code ordinances and things because you can only go so far in policing how individuals or businesses appearance goes, but still, give them incentives to clean up their properties, give them incentives to do things, and what the city can do sidewalk wise or beautification wise on its own to enhance different areas of the city and not just Main
Well,
Street.
like beautification, like the entrance signs coming into Cherryville.
Mhm.
Some of them are looking pretty shoddy, and but we've got billboards in town that is paying for billboards that has the city logo. We're paying for city billboards, but we're neglecting our entrance signs. That doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense to me.
Again, I hate to keep going back to when I was mayor because, again, I'm not at all thinking that I or the councils I served with did anything wonderfully or greater than anybody else. But the present entry signs that on the major thoroughfares into the city of Cherryville were installed when I was mayor. So that's been 25 years ago. And I would say little, if anything's been done to update them, to keep them looking better. And some are where they were located in 25 years ago were in a perfect location, but today they're kind of getting lost with other growth and other things going on around them. So maybe relocating some of those, but you know that's the first impression anybody gets when they come into our city, especially if they've never been here before, is they see that, and if it's deteriorating or if it doesn't look good or if it's faded or if it's misplaced, lost in the shuffle with yard signs and everything else cluttered around it, then that's a shame because that is again is our first impression of people coming into the city.
That is something I noticed, and then right down the road, you've got a big billboard
Mhm.
that paying monthly for that.
Right, right.
Um, Now we go to downtown, a lot of money being spent on that, and then we go to recreation. And Cheryl's been good at developing things, but it seems like the city has not been very good maintaining things
Mhm.
over the years, just like the parks. We got some wonderful parks,
Right,
but it seems like over the years they'll get renovated and then 5, 10 years later they get neglected.
right.
So what's your thoughts about the recreation program and that
Um,
sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm very glad that we now over the past couple of years have had we have a recreation director, and I think they're doing a wonderful job. And I do know the city's doing a great job now with and there's been some discussion even at the last council meeting about outside use, renting ball fields for these travel teams and other programs going on, Dixie Youth or whatever it may be. Um, and I know that's been great as a revenue stream coming back into the city. I echoing what was said at the last council meeting, I certainly hope that never, renting ball fields to outside entities is never sacrificing what the citizens get from those ball fields. So, citizens, our local ball teams first and foremost. Then if they're empty, by all means rent them and let's get that revenue because it is a growing revenue stream for the city. But recreation in and of itself, I totally agree. I mean, there's a lot of these, back in, I don't know, the 70s or maybe 60s even, they had these little community parks and they're just kind of dotted around town. But that's kind of gone away. I mean, people are kind of going to bigger, better areas. So it'd be great if we could further enhance uh, the Ballard Park where the city pool is and their fields there and add on and continue to grow that as being the one kind of city park in Cherryville or the city park that's over the old city park.
Yeah,
I think it's Aaron
Westgate.
Moss. Yeah, the
Yeah.
West. Yeah. So instead of having these little community parks, because if you could, I
And
think
then
if you
the city
combine the
park over
research, yeah,
uh,
the city park.
yeah, over
Yeah.
there at the
So
tennis courts.
right. So I just think if you could bind the resource rather than spending money on these other little areas all around town, is grow one big central city park that could serve everybody for a number of purposes. Maybe better, but yeah, I mean, recreation's huge. I mean, it's huge. It's a huge draw to our town, and it's also vital to our youth growing up. I mean, to have a place where they can have basketball, the gym, I think was is wonderful for the city, and it certainly is being used, if not almost every day, with basketball, volleyball as a walking track for citizens to go and look at, just walk if the weather's bad or whatever. So I think that's great. I was a little disappointed in the fact that we didn't maybe as a city um, do a little bit bigger, better, broader expectation on the gym. To be honest,
Well, sometimes it's just like when somebody wins the lottery or is given a house or something like that. You're given money and then you build it, but then there's an expense to upkeep it
mhm,
and keep it up.
mhm,
And so that's something that Cherville needs to look at. It you got to set aside money to maintain what you have,
Sure, sure.
or add on to it or whatever. Um, so that's something that, you know, maybe the city needs to look at, and as far as recreation, I know Cherryville is big into Legion baseball,
Right.
big into, post 100 baseball, and always has been. Now the city, came up with $250,000, I think, to give to the Legion, um, under the promise to pay it back someday, and I think
Mhm,
they're using some of that money that they rent the field out to do that.
mhm.
Um, what do you feel about spending that kind of money on one ball field? Um, that's a lot of money, $250,000, and
Yeah, it is, and I honestly, I don't know the exact contractual terms of that agreement or what was given, what was not given. I know there's a lot of money given from private resources. I know Gaston County Travel and Tourism gave a lot of money to that field. And I know it mainly was to attract these regional and state Legion tournaments, which are great. And at the same time, it's attracting more and more of the AAU or the travel ball teams and things. I know the last couple of weekends I've been by the ball field on all day Saturday and all day Sunday. There's stuff going on over there, so I know that's a good revenue stream, and it is coming back to some extent. I don't know. It gets into kind of the public, the public investment into a maybe a somewhat of a private enterprise. Uh, that you hear all these big cities building ballparks for a private owner that owns the ball team or whatever. So I might be against that a little bit more. I think it's a little bit more justified here because the Cherryville American Legion and the ball teams that it hosts, and then the revenue that it brings through the tournaments that they bring to town. Those dollars are spent here, and that is here for local Cherryville people to hopefully enjoy. So, yeah, again, but it is a fine line. I mean,
well, we cover the tournaments extensively, and we talked to a lot of merchants. The merchants said they didn't see much of an impact from it,
mhm,
and we counted the fans in the stands, and the fans, um, there were 68 people in the stands for the
mhm,
championship game this year. I think
mhm,
last year there was 100, and I think one game had about 200.
right,
So we're spending millions of dollars literally on that field, and there's hundreds of people coming.
right,
So
right,
that's just the numbers.
yeah.
And so the economic impact, how much is the economic impact?
Well, that's a good point.
Nobody could
Yeah.
really tell us,
No, but, again, there's resources, certainly through the county, Economic Development Commission and the Travel and Tourism Board, and certainly the region, and the state to where, you know, and again, not knowing exactly what those contractual agreements have been, not knowing what the return on that investment is for the city, but I would totally be in favor of before any investment is made, reach out to these entities that know what that impact may be. Travel and Tourism Board is perfect. They gave a ton of money for that ball field too. So, but we shouldn't rely on the fact that, well, Gaston County Travel and Tourism gave some money, so we as a city will too. Let's let's look at what
what was the
there's
true
all kind of
economic impact?
yeah,
You know?
there's studies and things going on every day about demographics and those sorts of public-private investments into towns and what's the return on that. That it would be very easy, I would think, to either through even UNCC Charlotte would have economics or public policy classes that could talk about that and look at that, and
Mhm.
you could do studies if Gaston County or the state doesn't have resources to do that as well. So
Well, wants and needs are two different things. It's some things sound good, but is it financially? Is it really reaping the benefit?
sure,
And,
sure,
and that's an argument with the larger cities too.
right.
How much money they spend on sports and recreation. Um, Shifting gears again to the arts. There's been a lot of emphasis on baseball and recreation, and then we have the Cherville Theater. What's your thoughts on the arts as far as plays, bands, art?
Yeah, As you know, I've been involved with the Cherryville Theater for, gosh, I guess 40 years now, and I currently serve on the board as the treasurer of the group. And it's hard to even believe that I've been involved with them that long. But so I'm a huge proponent of the arts, and I think the Cherryville Theater over the past few years has done a wonderful job in bringing entertainment, bringing arts, bringing that theatrical expression to the city of Cherryville. I mean, there's something going on. There's literally cars there almost 4 or 5 days a week, practicing, working on plays, doing classes. Um, that sort of thing, and I think it's incredibly important. I was also in the band in high school, so I'm very much a proponent of music. I love the fact in the past that there's been the Gaston Symphonic Band will come occasionally to do a concert or play something here in Cherryville. So I would love to see us do more of that. And I even made a proposal a couple of years ago, kind of from the theater, but to the city. Uh, of creating some type of committee that would be kind of a liaison between the local groups, the music events or the theater, Cherryville Theater, or just and then also looking at bringing in outside entertainment, either more so than just at the Cherry Blossom or at the 4th of July, is having kind of bands or using the Cherryville Theater is very fortunate that it's a city owned building, but they've been the primary occupant. But it seats 200 people. It's a wonderful, at least from an acoustic standpoint, facility. But having some bands or having some shows or doing some events, even having artists come for exhibits or for lectures or something of that nature, but kind of the city creating some type of a cultural awareness committee or just to start that conversation, if nothing else, because obviously sports is huge in Cherryville, and rightfully so, and that's great. But there's I will say probably the resurgence and the success of the little theater, it kind of peaks and valleys over time, as any group will. But the past 5, 10 years has been because of the youth in our greater area, because there's people that come from Kings Mountain, Shelby, Lincoln, and all over to work at the little theater. But it's been kids that don't have that sports desire. They truly want to do entertainment and theatrical arts or music or whatever it may be, dance even. So, giving them an outlet, giving them somewhere to go to fit in and to express their interest and their talent, I think is wonderful. So, broadening that in any way we can as a city would be wonderful.
I know something that a lot of towns have are permanent stages. They have a permanent
Mhm.
meeting area, so to speak,
Right,
and
right.
so that is something that maybe Cherville needs to look at down the road is more of a permanent stage area that they can hold, bands
Right.
and I don't know, just dance uh, recitals and just
Sure.
stuff like that.
Sure. I agree with that. There's a lot of, and I visit some of the surrounding towns for their, live after five events or music events or whatever. And some Shelby, Lincoln, and still have kind of a temporary stage in certain areas, but Bessemer City, certainly Kings Mountain, their parks that they have created, the permanent stages they built are wonderful, and certainly something I'd live in our town now. Downtown being as nice and as beautiful it is, having some permanent structure down there, I think could only be a bonus.
Yeah, there was some plans drawn a number of years ago for downtown, and there was a permanent stage and some things drawn in, but some things were going to have to be moved around and stuff. So
Mhm.
um, something that to make Cherville more competitive with other towns because it seemed like the towns are getting in competition with each other with
Yeah,
their
for sure.
marketing, with their amenities, so to
Yeah,
speak.
for sure. It is a draw, and there has to be something to said for that. And back to kind of the public investment and those sorts of things. Fortunately, I think over the past few years, the Chamber of Commerce has stepped up, and a lot of private individuals and businesses and companies have stepped up to fund some of those things that are going on. So it hadn't been an incredible outlay for the city, but there's something to that. If you have 1,000, 2,000, 300 people coming to your town on a Saturday evening, Sunday afternoon, whatever it may be. Hopefully they're going to spend some dollars somewhere. And if nothing else, they're just going to say, hey, this is a pretty neat little town. I want to come back and check it out later on too. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Industry, we want industry, but it just seemed like that's an area that we just haven't had since Carolina Freight, so to speak. Any thoughts on getting
well,
more
I
industry in?
certainly wish I had the magic pill to do that as everybody else does as well. Um, yeah, I mean, you can say all the popular taglines of we need industry, we need jobs, we need that sort of thing, but how do you do it? How do you actually do it? And I think we need to build on the quality of life issues. We need to work on the problems that we've talked about, the long range planning for roads, streets, electrical, water, and sewer. All of those infrastructures have to be solid and in place to attract the bigger industries that you're looking for. It may or may not be a popular um, talking point. I happen to serve presently on the Gaston County Economic Development Board, and unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what side of the coin you're on, it takes partnerships with those type entities, the Gaston County Economic Development, the state, economic development board, those sorts of things, and really promoting Cherryville for what it is. There's a good quality of life, the things that we do have to offer here, and just making it known, and it has to be consistent. And you have to be in front of those people all the time, the Gaston County Board of Commissioners, your state representatives, and really promoting that. So when there are these companies looking for a place to locate, then maybe they would consider Cherryville. Now, whether that's going to happen, that's up to their personal, private business decisions, right? But staying in front of those people, staying in touch with those people, being an active voice in the county economic development commission is to me is incredibly important. So, like or hate what they may have done in the past. Um, they're out there working every day, and they've got a staff that they're getting paid to talk to business, look at expanding businesses, look at businesses relocating to the area. And if we have the land, we have the availability, and it's conducive to what they're wanting to do, then that's the avenue we're going to have to get our word out there.
Well, I know there's always been talk about the roads, 4 lane. We need 4 lane roads in Cherryville, and that may be true. And then I heard the other day that they're talking about possibly a bypass around Cherryville. Which I think get 150 improve 150 as it is. We need turn signals on every stoplight on 150. Just like the one on the west side here above the
Right.
road. I mean, sometimes traffic's backed up a half a mile
Mhm.
because of no turn signals.
Sure.
So they just completed the one at McDonald's
Mhm.
for the turn light. So as far as traffic flow, I mean, to talk the state into building a bypass, I mean, it took them 50 years to get Shelby's. So,
Yeah. I
stuff
don't,
like that is pie in the sky things. I would work on the state as far as getting what we have
right.
working at its peak
Right.
maximum
Right.
capacity.
Right. And I don't know specifically about a literal bypass of Cherryville, and I don't think anybody or our grandchildren would ever live to
Well,
see
believe
that.
it or
Right.
not, it's been kicked around.
Yeah,
I
but
understand.
again, but reality would be out at what's that, 100 years out or something.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
but I mean, but you do have the new bypass at Shelby, which isn't that far from us. So improving the road and from here to that bypass would be great. You have everybody talks about the 4 lane road to Kraus. We have on the east side of town. So, but that's not that far. Kraus is not that far from connecting to, uh, uh,
321. Yeah.
321. So, and that was the original intent when they 4 lane across. The next step would be 4 lane to 321, which would be wonderful. So, improving that, obviously getting through Cherryville might be a little bit of an issue for truck traffic or major traffic, but just improving getting in and out of Cherryville. And then, of course, the Dallas Cherryville Highway. I mean, at least they did put some passing turn lanes in there, but I don't know that that improved that much of anything. Should we merit big, a larger volume of traffic in and out of town? So
Well, increasing, population, like say going back to what we said, it brings more challenges when you increase the population.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
um, I believe I've hit about everything, Wade. I don't know of anything that we've kind of touched the key points. Anything you'd like to say in closing, if you want to look at your notes and make sure you've hit
Um,
everything.
no, I want to, I just want to say I'm very thankful to be in a position to run for mayor. I've thought about this for the last 3 or 4 years about doing it and when would be the good opportunity, the best opportunity for me to do it. And fortunately, now is that time. I'm also fortunate that I am unopposed, but I don't want people to see that I'm just sliding into this because, well, nobody else is running, so Wade's going to be elected. I really want, um, be careful what you ask for. You said earlier, but I want people to put me to the test. I want people to ask questions. I want people to let me know what their feelings are. Uh, I'm an open book when it comes to my political service. I don't, and I say this all the time, and sometimes it offends people. I don't care about being elected mayor. I don't, the campaigning, the political side of it, the politician side of it. I could care less about that. I love this town dearly. I always have. I chose my life to be here for my entire life. It's a wonderful place to grow up. It's been a wonderful place to live. And if I can give back or do anything to help it become even a little bit better place, then that's what I'm after. Uh, I feel my public kind of leadership skills. I feel my work ethic, my experience is I honestly think I'm the right person at the right time for the city of Cherryville. But when I say that, my goal is to what are your children, your grandchildren? I don't have kids, but I think about that all the time. I do have two nephews that I love dearly, and one of them lives in town. So, and he has a small daughter, a baby daughter. What is her future in regards to the city of Cherryville? Can we make this a better place for Kennedy, my grandniece, to grow up in and want to live in Cherryville rather than growing up and then saying, well, there's better opportunities somewhere else. So um, I totally look at that, and that's what I look for is the future vision of Cherryville. What do we collectively as a city want Cherryville to be, and how can we work together to get to that point?
I know there's no one opposed this year. The two city
Right,
council
right.
people are not opposed. So really no one is running but you three. And back to your point, getting people interested in what the city's doing. Um, and I don't think people realize that city, local taxes, government gets in your pocketbook more than the federal. But a
Mhm,
lot of times people get caught up with the president and what's going
mhm.
on the federal level
Right.
that they don't really pay attention to the local level.
Mhm.
And the local level is what's affecting you the most. That's your pothole that you're driving home from
Sure,
work that you're trying to avoid.
sure.
That's your water bill, your sewer bill, your infrastructure,
Mhm.
and so getting people involved.
Yeah, and you know, Gary Freeman and Jill Pewitt are unopposed, as I am in this election cycle. But they're there. They've done that. They've done their campaigning. They put themselves out there every day, every month, every meeting, and the public knows that. So I want people to vote for me because they've been through the rigors of the last few elections. I have not, so I don't want people to think I'm just sliding in and without any kind of effort. But you're right. I, the city, I mean, yeah, I mean, from your personal tax dollars, if nothing else, is a huge factor in your daily life. Each and every citizen that lives here. So that's why I want to go. I go back to what I said earlier. I want people to be involved. Um, I wish people didn't want to watch it on Wise News Network or watch the city's public. I wish they were at the council meetings, because a lot of times we go in there and if it's a big issue, they're got some overflow areas or whatever. But by and large, there's empty chairs in that small
But how
room.
well are the council meetings promoted? I mean, how well are the work sessions promoted? You know,
Yeah, I mean, you typically know when they are, right? If you know when they are, you know when they're not.
well,
But
the people that keep up with it.
yeah, but I want I don't know how you do it. I want people to know when that meeting is. You know, I want everybody in town. I want them to make a conscious decision that, well, I don't need to go tonight, or gosh, I want to go tonight, or be involved somehow. And I don't know if it's uh, more public forums or meetings or that sort of thing. But in reality, how are people? You know, why or if are people going to come to
Well, you'd
different
rather
types
have
of
people there
situations? You
than
know, so
getting on social media and chattering
yeah,
because, you know, social media, half the stuff you see on there is not true anyway. So
mhm,
with AI these days, you don't
yeah,
really know what's going on.
right. That's true. Um, now, I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know how to get people involved and active, but you know, I can assure you that I'm going to be out there, out in public, you know, talking and speaking my mind. If there's one thing that there's one thing that I do is I can talk and I will talk, and I'm not holding back on my opinion very often, and sometimes that gets me in trouble. So I hope it doesn't as mayor, but I, you know, I'm again, I'm back to when I ran before and when I served as mayor before. I that's one of the proudest accomplishments of my life, and not only being mayor, but the service that I gave to the city. I think I did so with uh, quite a bit of integrity. And I think I did provide good leadership on a number of very serious topics during those times. And I was very blessed to serve with some good council members. And I look forward to bringing that attitude to this council and working with this council as well.
Well, we appreciate you coming on today. Viewers, this is Wade Strap, potentially our next mayor, unless Mickey Mouse beats him out on the right end. But if you have any questions for Wade, how can they get in touch with you? Do you have an email and phone number?
I,
I
I,
saw that on the flyer.
I do have an email address. I've got two. Excuse me. Let me grab this because I do have a phone number specifically for the campaign. It's 704-473-3544. But also the email address is Wade Stroupe for mayor at gmail.com. I also have a Facebook page. So go to Wade Stroupe for mayor on the Facebook page, and you should be able to find me. And I've been posting some things, and I'm going to start, in fact, this afternoon on a more regular, every couple day basis leading up to the election, because I want people to talk and express their ideas and opinions and what they feel we should do as a city. And I really want to solicit that feedback. And I'm going to be out in public at some events, Cherryville coming up, some other things coming up. And if anybody would love to just talk to me personally, or if you have an event coming up, I've kind of shied away from trying to approach people about coming here and there because I am unopposed, but I don't want that to indicate that I don't want to talk to people. So if there's a function or an organization or somebody wants to get together for a cup of coffee, I would love to come talk to them about the city of Cherryville. So, and I would like to say, Rusty, if I could, it's been an honor and privilege to be here today, and I appreciate the invitation to be here at Wise News Network. This has been great, and I hope there's not too many outtakes from from my rambling and talking that you have to do. But I appreciate what Rusty you do and Wise News Network does for this city. You know, I admittedly years ago when you started this venture, I was like, Cherryville, do we need a news network? But I think you've done a wonderful job, and and we're very very fortunate to um, have this and what you do in our city, because if nothing else, we have a video kind of permanent record because I see you at every event coming and going around in and around our town. So to have that and to have that catalog and history in video of what this city is all about, it's you've done a wonderful service here.
Well, I appreciate it. It's not just me, it's our whole team. And it's a lot of work and a lot of expense, but I felt like Cherville's a small town, and I felt like we didn't need to be in a news desert
Mhm.
either. And so I'm proud of Cherville. Lived here all my life, so we tell all stories on both sides. We
Right.
don't, we stay neutral, you know, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, so to speak.
Sure.
And so
Sure.
we try to be fair across the board. And
Well, you've done a wonderful job, and I
well,
appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Well, viewers and readers, until you see us again, I'm Rusty Wise, and we've had Wade Strap, the next mayor of Cherryville, and we'll see how things go there, unless Mickey Mouse beats him out, but I don't think he will. But if you need anything from us, give us a call or an email at newsdesk@wisenewsnetwork.com. And find us on all our social media at wisenewsnetwork.com and all the social media. And we're really growing. I think this past week we had 50,000 readers and viewers. So Cherryville's a little town of 6,000 people, but we're actually putting Cherryville on the map, 50,000 people in 7 days. So we're growing, and we really appreciate everyone's attention and tuning in today. Till you see us again, I'm Rusty Wise with the Wise News Network from the WNN Studios.